Hi, this video is going to be on Chapter 4, which is Development, and all the students and kids I used in this experiment, their parents did give me consent to use them, and most of them agreed to be in it, while a few didn't really know until after the experiment, but that'll come later. The first concept I'm going to be going over is Piaget's pre-operational stage of development, which ranges from 2 to 7 years old, and the first subconcept of the pre-operational stage I'm going to go over is egocentrism. And the individual that I used for this for Piaget's Three Mountains experiment for egocentrism is very close to me. I've known her for about 4 years now, and hope you'd enjoy it. You can't move your body at all, but just tell me what you see.
The orange.
Okay. What else?
The bucket.
Okay. What else?
Candy in the bucket.
You can see the candy in the bucket. Okay. What else can you see besides the orange in the bucket?
The markers.
All right. Is that about it? Or is there anything else?
The eraser.
Okay. Now we're gonna switch. So you come over here, and I'll go over there.
I see something else.
That's fine. Just sit there. There's no trick. I'm just asking you simple questions. All right. Now tell me what you see. Okay. What else?
No, my mouse is right
Well, just tell me what you can see in front of you. There's no trick questions. So you see a bucket? Anything else? Or is that about it? Okay. Now, tell me what can I see? From my point of view, what can I see? Okay. What else? I can see you. What else? I can see the face of the pumpkin. And just tell me when you're done. The eraser. That's it. So observing that experiment, you can see that Emily was not able to identify that from my perspective I could still see the orange. From hers she could not, so therefore she didn't say that I could see it, which shows that she is still in that egocentric mindset. Moving on to the second sub-concept being pretend play, I used 4 young girls who happily agreed to pretty much play into this kitchen set that I have in the classroom that I work in. And almost immediately they immersed themselves into this kind of diner scenario where a couple of them were taking orders and then a couple of them were being served. And in the video you'll see that the people who were being served pretty much use currency being erasers, which I thought was really cute and interesting. And at the same time, those who were taking the orders were using like actual names of breakfasts, which was also very interesting.
Coffee? What do you have? No fringes. How may I help you? Can I get a pizza, a burger, maybe everything you have on your menu? Okay.
You heard the lady. She wants everything you have.
No. Okay. I'll give her coffee. Breakfast platter. Coffee.
A breakfast platter. I like that.
What's the water?
What are you getting, Charlotte?
Coffee for her.
Ah, you're a coffee drinker?
Yeah.
How do you like your coffee?
I like it. Mixed with chocolate milk.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, that's $100. You guys are gonna have $100. Seriously.
Alright, so moving into the second concept, being Piaget's second stage of development, the concrete operational stage, which ranges from 7 to 12 years old. Now, in this upcoming video, I do an experiment on conservation, which pretty much is one of Piaget's developmental accomplishments. And something really interesting happens in this experiment, which maybe you'll see. But if you don't, I'm going to explain it right afterwards. Conservation is pretty much when a child does or does not understand, depending if they've moved into that operational stage or not, or the concrete operational stage or not. It depends on whether or not they understand that changing the form of a substance or object does not alter the overall amount, mass, or volume of that object. So here's that experiment. Go ahead and tell them your name.
My name is Emily.
How old are you?
7.
And what grade are you in?
First.
You're in first grade. Alright, what color dye do you want this water to be?
Blue.
Okie dokie. 1, 2. 1, 2.
I really need to.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to make it blue. And I don't have a stir stick, so I'm using a marker. Alright. Where are we right now?
I don't know.
We're at school. Oh, like right now we're in my classroom. Alright, so you would agree that both of these are pretty even, yes? Okay. So, watch what I do. I'm going to get one of these cups and pour it into here. So, would you say, stop, hold on. Does this one have more? Does this one have more? Or are they still the same?
This one has more.
Okay, why?
Because it's in a round one, and because it's like a round one, and this one's a flat one, so it's not going to be that high.
Okay. Watch what I do. It's the same water, right? I'm going to try and pour it back in the cup without spilling. Try and get all of it. So would you say they're still back at the same now? Or does one have more than the other, or are they back at the same?
They're the same.
Okay. Now I'm going to get the other cup. Go ahead and pour it in carefully.
Pouring it everywhere.
Okay, make sure you get all of it. Alright. So now,
That's loud.
does this one have more? Does this one have more? Or are they both the same? What do you think? It's whatever you think. Come on, you gotta give me an answer. They're both the same? Okay, why?
Because there was some in that cup, and then we poured it in here. So and then when we pour it back in, it's going to be the same.
Okay. Alright, so from there, in the first stage of the experiment, you saw that Emily said that the tall drinking glass was holding more liquid simply because it was taller than the baking pan. Now, what I found very interesting was that when I did the second stage of that experiment and pretty much just switched the containers, she did not say that the tall drinking glass had more liquid. She said that they're both the same, and her reasoning was pretty sound as well, that the liquid in the baking pan was pretty much from the glass earlier, so that's why it was the same as the other tall glass that was not changed. Moving on to another conservation experiment, I did the same thing with Play-Doh, and you can check that out right now with Emily again. So they're about the same size?
Yeah.
Okay. Say I make this one into like a hot dog. Okay. So is this one bigger? Is this one bigger? Or are they still the same? What do you think? Is what?
This one's long.
Okay. What?
Because, so, okay, it's almost like the same height because you put it like this. So this one's smaller because it's right there, and then this one's bigger.
Okay. See? Alright. So we're done with the Play-Doh. So as you can see from the Play-Doh experiment, she definitely didn't really nail accomplishing conservation in terms of not being able to identify that just by changing the shape of the Play-Doh did not mean that it was different from the other piece, because they are both equal to begin with. Now, moving on to my third and final concept being projection, I use 3 boys that I work with every day, and 2 of them are very behavioral, as you'll see in the experiments up to come. Now, they agreed to help me with this project, but they didn't really know what they were doing, which was the goal, because I wanted to get a natural reaction from them, and if I did, that was awesome, because I actually did capture something. And my coworker helped me record this, so that's why I was kind of wobbly. I apologize for that, but you're going to see a very good example of projection in this video.
You're distracting me. What did I do?
Hey, it's fine, stop. Alright, so the boy that pretty much showed signs of projection onto the other boy who was just sitting there, he has these behaviors quite often, and it's not because he hates that person or he's actually really mad, but in that moment, subconsciously, he just vents out, and sometimes he blames the other person, or he'll just speak out in general. Now, in this case, I simply just redirected him, and as you could see, he wasn't really angry afterwards. He cooperated, and he was completely fine. If you're upset or you need help, what should you do?
Ask for help.
Okay, don't blame someone else for something. You good? Do you need help?
Yeah.
Okay, what's 7 minus 2? That's part, you can do that. And did you have to regroup it all?
No.
So what's your answer?
1,099.
Alright. So next time, don't get mad at him for that, okay? Because you just did it. Alright, and that pretty much sums up concept 3 on projection. And before I end this video, I just want to say I had an absolute blast creating this project and conducting all these experiments over the past month or 2. I hope you enjoyed watching, and thanks.
What's up? Guys, come on. This is what they do every day in school. Get this.